department. I oversee the Miramar Cultural Center, the beautiful Miramar Cultural Center at the Town Center. And it is the time for this great panel discussion. So I want to thank you all out the gate for joining us in our In Time of Protest virtual panel. In Time of Protest is an art exhibition organized by Rolando Barrero. He's a curator of Box Gallery in Palm Beach. So we always host great exhibitions, and Rolando's in charge of this one. It's in recognition of Black history and Black Lives Matter movement as part of American history. The purpose of the panel is to encourage an in-depth discussion with our artists, our activists, and students on an intersection of protest and photography, social climate, and cultural arts. We want to hear from you, our viewers, as well as, so please leave your questions in the comment section. But right now, without further ado, let's turn it over to Rolando Barrero.
Hi, thank you, Camacha. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on a Zoom call with you and with all our wonderful guests. I have the extra privilege of introducing at least 3 of the 8 artists that were in the exhibition. The other artists would love to be here, and they asked for me to express their apologies on behalf of them. And I told them, I go like this, well, if you can make the call, sign on, even if it's a little late, because our program includes one of the great speakers that was at the gallery during the first night of the exhibition. And then we have also one of the youngest organizers of the Black community during In Time of Protest that preceded the George Floyd murder, Jai Allen. And with let's not take up too much time, I want to introduce Bryce Graham. Bryce, tell us what you shared at the gallery, a little bit about the first day that you were there.
Yes, Rolando, the first day that I was there, I was just blown away at all of the art that was in the gallery from the George Floyd protest. At that time, it was just such a deep pain and anger and passion that was there. And I began to share with people in that gallery some of what I had experienced and some of what I had felt through that time at the gallery. You're muted.
Who were you quoting? Because you quoted a very inspirational human being that I believe is the foundation of almost every conversation that we have had all month in regards to Black history. And why is it important that you quoted that man?
Absolutely. I quoted the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because he is the pillar to the civil rights movement. And he still is a stakeholder to this very day, a prophet to this very day to the movement. And it is important that I quote him because his dream is before our eyes is becoming a reality. And a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I believe that we should take a stand for justice, not only in our local communities, but across the country. You're on mute again.
Yeah, I'm getting old for this. I got to get used to this. I have the greatest honor to watch the next young lady who's going to speak grow up and blossom into not only a woman of character, but one of the leaders of our community in Black activism and in promoting Black businesses. Jai Allen, the daughter of a dear friend of mine. Jai, I always have to remind everybody that I know you as a little girl. And now you're a full-grown woman with a strong voice.
Thank you. This is the part where I take it from here, I'm assuming. So my name is Jai. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called the Uproar Project, and we promote peace and inclusivity through arts and entertainment. And that includes unity showcases, open mics, podcasts, anything you can think of that includes artistry. And the reason why I chose art as my medium is because art to me is a universal language. It is understood by everyone and anyone, regardless whether you know what they're saying or not. You can still respect it, and you can bop to it when you go to a concert, when you go to the movies. You enjoy those things, and you're not really concerned about the person sitting next to you and what they look like, and maybe if they're chewing in your ear too loud. But aside from that, there's really isn't much of a conversation of, politics or beliefs or religion or any of that stuff when it comes to art. So I started it actually, I spearheaded it shortly after the Parkland shooting in February 2018, and we launched our project in May 2019, and ever since we've been doing what we're doing, and it's been growing ever since. So, yeah.
And we have a lot of young students here that I hope will reach out to you, and a lot of viewers that are watching today that can reach out to you for your support and your guidance, because they will listen to you much sooner than they will listen to this old man here, because you're closer to the reality of what's going on in the world and how it affects this generation, because you are from this generation. And I am so happy to see the journey around. With that, I also have another person that is a wonderful presenter that is also from another organization that is called Freedom Fighters for Justice, and it's Sam Holstein, and she will be speaking closing. But Sam, would you like to say a couple of words?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Sam. I'm the administrator at Freedom Fighters for Justice. I'm actually filling in for Janie, who is the CEO and founder. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And with no further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing three of the, I think it was 9 artists. And we're going to begin with Reshe Nelson, one of the youngest artists in the exhibition. And say hello, Reshe. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work and what you're doing today.
Okay, well, my name is Rasheen Nelson. I'm born and raised in West Palm Beach, Florida, but right now I'm in New York City. I'm in my last semester of college at Fordham University. I'm a dancer first, so I major in dance as well as digital technology and emerging media. I picked up a camera just as another creative outlet. So yeah, I'm artsy fartsy, all those things, and just interested in whatever I could get my hands on. So I picked up a camera just to have another creative outlet, and just as an artist and a creative, had the instinct to capture the protests over the summer. And as Rolando will mention, like, he gave us this great opportunity to just exhibit the things that we caught and captured through our perspective and showcase them in his gallery and now at Miramar. And it's been a great experience. I'm so happy to be here.
And next, I will introduce Kevin Yantanen, who I believe was part of every protest and created a strong relationship with the Black community through this whole event. But it wasn't always so easy, was it, Kevin?
I mean, well, for following a greater purpose and for my heart, absolutely was easy. Absolutely. I was looking. Well, hello everyone. I'm Kevin, by the way. Um, I was I'm a photographer, and for the longest while, I was looking to utilize my craft for something meaningful. You know, something bigger than myself. Spent many years just practicing, taking photographs, but nothing was really making an impact. And when this happened, I knew I felt the call and the need to go out there and photograph what I could. Uh, you know, immortalize the ephemeral is what I like to say, because these moments they can come so fast, and history can forget, especially when we're inundated with so much information in this day and age. So I knew that photography was a way to capture that, immortalize it, and I'm really glad I was able to do that. You know, it's I feel it deep. You know, um, and yeah, it's truly been an amazing thing. And I think that this is the time where we all need art, you know, because art provides catharsis in the most contentious times. Rolando, you're muted.
I keep doing that. Max, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to document in time of protest.
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Maldonado. So I'm also a born and raised West Palm Beacher. I've been here almost all my life. And, you know, I came to start documenting the protest because I am a recent graduate of Florida Atlantic University, and my major was journalism, and I focused mostly on photojournalism and documentarian work. And around the time that this protest, these uprisings started happening, I was immediately upon it. I didn't think for a second about, you know, my own safety or anything like that. I just thought of documenting history as it was happening. Because, you know, as journalists, there's like this famous saying that journalists write the first drafts of history. And, you know, I was so privileged and so honored to be able to, you know, stand amongst these people who were changing, you know, history locally as well as nationally. And, you know, this brought in just this general, and then also it just kept this conversation and this energy going of what is right, what is equality, what is racial justice, what is all of these things that pertain to, you know, just the greater umbrella term of, you know, coexistence. And I was just so privileged and so honored to say that I was able to, you know, take my camera out and be able to have conversations with these people as well as capture them doing these historic things. So that is how I came to start documenting these protests.
And we have come to the most important part of this conversation. We are going to introduce the teachers and the students, because all of this would be of no purpose unless we inspire the younger people in our midst to continue and to carry the torch. And I will give it back to you, Kamasha, so you can introduce everybody.
Thank you, Rolando. Thank you to the artists, to the contributing everyone for contributing their work to the exhibit and their time in this event. As we mentioned earlier, the purpose of the panel is to encourage an in-depth discussion with artists, activists, and students. And we are also joined by Shannon Hand, an art teacher at Somerset, Miramar, yay, and some of her students. So Shannon, off you go. Okay, Shannon is not there. Well, let's move on to Idiana. So you can introduce your students and we'll circle back to Shannon.
Hello, I'm Idania Clark. I'm the art teacher at Miramar High School. I have 3 students. The first one is a 9th grader, Deanna Menders. My second student is a 10th grader. Her name is Yashiri Joseph. And my third student is Gayela Buderin, and all three are from Miramar High School.
So this is the point of the conversation where I get to ask each one of you young ladies to tell us a little bit about yourselves, introduce your name, and why does this subject interest you? And how did you experience in time of protest while it was happening? And we'll go in order. Deanna, if you could mute yourself and tell us a little bit about how you experience the time of protest this past year.
Hi, my name is Deanna, and I'm a ninth grader. This actually made me really sad and just very frightening because, like, this world is supposed to be filled with peace, and we're all supposed to be equal. And for this to happen, it just made me very angry, and it just wasn't right.
Okay. And next is Gaela.
Okay. For me, I also agree with her. This world is supposed to be filled with happiness. Not completely, but for the most of it, especially being an individual, you're supposed to be yourself, not be judged by your skin color. And we have this going on right now, and it's wrong. We need to change that.
And I heard that you guys were working on a project also for the city of Miramar. And I believe that Idanya is going to tell us a little bit about the project.
So I had my students go ahead and work on the art project that was presented to us, and just being able to have majority of my students really talk about how they felt and express themselves through their artwork was really powerful for me. Although we are currently still in a pandemic, just being able to reach out to students and having them turn in their artwork and just being able to express how they really feel about everything that's currently going on with the protests and everything about the pandemic was really heartwarming to see that other students can really express themselves.
And Yashira, did you participate in that program at all? And how did you interpret the protests that were going on?
I mean, I think that seeing police brutality is like very scary and everything, because you're just seeing people protesting peacefully, and you see policemen like coming and everything and causing chaos. It's like very hard to, like to see all this, and I think that the world is supposed to be like a happy place. Everyone should be happy, and there's not supposed to be brutality in this world, because like we all brothers and sisters, regardless our skin color, and that's what I think.
Thank you. We have one of the most powerful photographs that was taken in every show. All of the artists produced really strong work. We had Aaron Schwartz, which is the gentleman whose work appeared on the flyer. Did everybody get to see the flyer? That was a collaboration between another photographer that's not here. And how I said they both wanted to be here, and they have other commitments that they weren't able to. But I'm going to tell you the names of the other artists that were here. It was Aaron Schwartz, Joey Melendez, Kevin Lawson, Max Maldonado's on the call, Nicholas Brooks, Reese Blanke, Saul Martinez, which was included in the show. And he is actually he's the photographer from the New York Times. And why I'm telling you ladies this, and I'm always directing it to you young ladies, because I want to encourage you to take time and wear your masks if you are not strictly in quarantine. But if you are going to step out, to stop by and see the exhibition. Another wonderful artist that had produced work is on the call, Max Maldonado, and he did a piece called Names. And would you explain a little bit about what names, how names came about, and why people took to that piece in particular?
Okay, so names actually came about from the photo names came about from the first protest that I attended on June 5th. And I find that particular photo so powerful and interesting because there is a little story behind it, as well as behind the message. It happened towards the end of my first protest that I was at. It was the June 5th, and we were walking around the downtown West Palm Beach area, from the amphitheater down through Clematis, over through City Place, and so on. And towards the end, as the leaders of that movement, who were both high school young women, who were young women from a high school that I had actually attended at the time, they were speaking out, and this man just appeared, and he was covered in the names of the people who were killed by police, such as George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, as well as many others. And I saw him, and I had only a minute to photograph him. I took as many photos as I could. And then as I go to look down at my camera roll and I look back up, he was gone. Nobody knows where he went. He just disappeared. I didn't even get to ask his name because I really wanted to know who he was. And, his disappearance at that moment kind of was almost like a symbol in a way. It was almost like the fleeting form of, justice. It's there and then can be gone in a second. And we have to just grab a hold of it while we can. And I believe that that's why Names is one of my favorite photographs that I took during that time, because it just has such a symbolizing meaning behind it. And yeah, I think that is that's about everything that I have to say about that.
Thank you. And we have another photo that is very striking, that tells a lot of the story about what the protest was all about. And that was taken by Kevin Yantanen, and that was in front of the big mural in West Palm Beach. And tell us a little bit about why you chose to take the photograph from inside the place where a canister had hit the window.
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened, Rolando. On the night of June 5th, the police fired, I believe, CS to disperse them and whatnot. The police moved, and one of the canisters, actually, well, multiple canisters hit multiple businesses, but this one in particular had quite a striking pattern. It was it like captured my attention. I went inside the business, I spoke to the business owner, and I asked him, "Would you mind if I photograph here?" And he says, "Sure, absolutely." And the piece is titled Respiration 1. It's one in a two-part series photographing the mural. And I just kind of wanted to capture, I guess, the abstraction, there's no subject in it other than the foreground being a shattered glass window caused by a CS gas canister, and the background being the now famous mural outside Respectable Street that says "I Can't Breathe" in bold text. I wanted to kind of just capture that sense of, that dismal, intense, gritty, violent feeling, that kind of hopelessness that a lot of people feel, with all those elements of police brutality just manifest in the image. And the reason why I included it in a series as well, in Respiration 2, was after the community got together during an event called Chalk the Block, and everyone came together with chalk, and then everyone wrote their message on the wall on the "I Can't Breathe" mural, messages of hope, unity, commitment, honor, everything you can think of, all in beautiful art and messages, to showcase that you can go from this violent, dark image to something beautiful because the community can come together and, you know, transform it. So that would be the meaning behind my respiration series.
Rolando, you're muted.
You're muted.
While Rolando works on his technical difficulties, I don't want to, I'd be remiss to not bring up that Shannon just entered the room. So Shannon, please, we were looking for, I know your students aren't here because you said there's a number of duties that they have, but please, we'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk about the engagement the students wanted to have rather.
Hello, I'm Shannon Hand. I work at Miramar High School, at Somerset Miramar High School. Most of my students don't really compete, but once I mentioned a Black Lives Matter competition, a lot of them became interested because it's relevant to them. I told them that, you know, their voices matter, and I wanted them to understand that this was an opportunity for them to be seen. And sorry, I had a distraction. You know, we live in a society that's blatantly, historically, systemically racist, and it was such a great opportunity to talk in an open discussion with my students about their own experiences, and I'm just so proud that they engaged in their community and they made art relevant to them and their experience.
Thank you, Shannon. And I think I'm back. Is my audio working?
Yeah.
I changed my background so that we could see the photographs that we were referring to.
Thank you.
And this was the photograph of Kevin Yantanen taken from inside the business. I will post Max's photo in a few moments, but I want to give Reggie the opportunity because Reggie was a unique experience for me as I was going through the protest. I was very aware that at any point it could go south. And by that I mean that the peaceful protest, all it took is one person to do the wrong thing, and violence might turn up. And it was a very heated time, and a lot of different people were gathering. And I didn't know everybody. And I saw this petite young girl on the steps of the city hall, and she was with her camera. And I was like, that's a valiant young lady. And I didn't know how old she was. And she has turned out to be very young, although she's already in college. But Reggie, tell us about your experience being on those steps and being surrounded by so many people.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think everyone that was there knows, and even the people that have seen the protests on TV have seen how quickly things can escalate and get out of hand. But I was there with my parents, and they were keeping an eye on me, and I felt very safe. But more than anything, I just think that I was there because I felt this like urge, this just natural instinct, or this, you know, eagerness to be a part of something that was much bigger than me, something that affects, you know, I see George Floyd, I see my brothers, I see my father, my uncles, my family. So it was beyond me. I didn't even really think about it. I just knew that things were happening in my community, and I had an opportunity, you know, to be a part of it. And I just felt like I needed to be there. I just needed to be part of the people marching. I had to be in the area. And I picked up my camera just like as a natural instinct, just as an artist. And I'm pretty sure Max and Kevin can speak to it. We just have this like natural instinct to document the moment and document the history that's happening. I had no idea where the photos would end up if I use them or show them or anything like that. I just felt a need to capture the history that was happening in my community, because it's definitely one thing to see things happening on TV and you feel that you see and feel what's going on, but there's still a sense of detachment. But to be there and to be a part of the crowd just adds to the visceral feeling of the change that's happening, the eagerness for change, and just seeing all the people around you that is creating this united force for change just provides a lot of hope in such a hopeless time. So yeah, it was a very rewarding experience, and yeah, life-changing, really.
The exhibition's original title was The Aesthetics of the aesthetics of protest. And you really captured what we were talking about by transferring the color image to black and white, and we exhibit them both together. And what is the difference between the impact of the color photograph to the black and white?
Yeah, so I originally wanted to put the pictures in black and white because I feel just on a surface level, it kind of catches the viewer's eye and catches your attention and sets the tone of that this is a serious matter. But I thought that it would be best to put the black and white and color next to each other to kind of parallel the images that we see during the civil rights movement. Most of the time, those images that we see in textbooks of Martin Luther King marching, of Rosa Parks on the bus, they're in black and white. But those events didn't happen not that long ago. And a lot of the people that marched with Dr. King in the civil rights movement are still living today. They have families and they have passed on their legacy, just as the people who were opposed to the civil rights movement also are probably still living, have had their families and passed on their legacy. So I just wanted to create that parallel in time that yes, we've come so far, but we still have so far to go. And there's still a lot of things that we were fighting for in the 50s and 60s that we're still fighting for right now. And, just to create that parallel and say, like, don't get too comfortable. There's still so much progress to be made. And, even though in those George Floyd, the protests that were in response to the death of George Floyd, it was more diverse than anything I think we've ever seen in history. And just the protests were international, the amount of numbers and people that came out to protest for Black lives and just racial equality. So much diversity, that's a beautiful thing, but there's still so far to go. And I just wanted to create that parallel with the colored and black and white images next to each other.
I did it. I did it again. I keep doing this. I would like to know if any of the students have any questions for any of the artists, or for Jai, or for our preacher, Pastor Bryce Graham.
I have a question
Yes.
for all the photographers. What would you like to see in the future?
Would you like to tackle that, Bryce? Let's start with you.
Wow. Yes. What I would like to see in the future is us being on a further along path than what we are now. It relates to justice. I want to relate back to what Rashay said, is that we have, it was not just long ago that the movement actually started. It was in the 50s and in the 60s and on through the 70s. And yet and still we have so far to go I don't disqualify the strides that we've already made, but there are still strides even today as it relates to injustice, as it relates to certain injustices in our country and in our communities that we need to tackle that would put us far in advance into what Dr. King actually stood for. And so, um, as a result of the future, us all coming together on one accord.
Thank you. Jai, would you like to expound on the question? What is your vision for the future?
My vision is very similar to what Bryce said as far as the executing MLK's vision, which is the infamous speech of having a dream that one day we'd be able to coexist peacefully. And for me, when I made the choice to go out on the streets and be on the front lines of protesting, my mentality was to get the message of peaceful inclusivity and get it out there that it's possible for us to peacefully coexist. And I believe that the protests were the first example or the first thing that showed America that all shapes and sizes, regardless of our beliefs, religions, sexualities, our skin color, we all stand for one thing and we all want to see one thing. And I feel like the outpouring of that was only the beginning of showing that. And I think for me in the long run, I just want to be able to see, establishments where it doesn't have to be, only for LGBT or only for Black people or only for Hispanics. I want to be able to see a world where, we can all walk into a bar and not be looked at or side-eyed or questioned for, our morale or any of that. So all in all, the long and short, I want to see a world where we don't necessarily need an event like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor to come together. I want to see a world where, it doesn't take, it's normal for us to come together just because we want to. So.
How about we ask Deanna to answer that question, one of the students. Deanna, what is your vision for the future?
My vision for the future will be that everyone will be more equal than now today, because I know that everything's going on, especially with Corona, and everyone's like a little bit separated. So like for everyone to be more equal and come together as one. So.
And Sam, as a representative of Freedom Fighters for Justice, what is your vision within your organization and what is the mission for the future?
Yeah, so definitely echoing, what's been said by our other speakers, our other panelists, and really, pushing to close the gaps, the racial inequity gaps that we see, and for everyone to have their voice heard by their representatives. So I guess to expand on that again, a society where we can all be heard and all come together. So.
And once again, I'm going to direct myself to the students. And Yashira, I haven't heard from you, so I am going to call you out. What direction do you see yourself in that may have changed because of what happened this summer?
Oh.
If anything.
Okay. I mean, when I saw what happened in the TV and on social media, I was like scared. But I wanted to like share what is happening with other people so that we can make a difference, you know? So I know I'm not like famous or anything, but I started posting about the movement on my Instagram page,
Mhm.
even if I'm not famous. I wanted to do something because I want that change and I want everything to be better.
Well, thank you. What direction did you take, Gaela?
I go to art too. Like art is a way, as you guys know, it's a way to express ourselves. And I really like to see art. I really like to see those posters, and this encourages me to go to Miss Clark and learn new things and see if I can be able to do this too. And I really enjoy it. Thank you.
Rolando, you and the microphone.
This question is directed to the teachers. What noticeable difference did you observe in the students as the protest went on? Were you in touch? I know it happened during the summer when they were not in session, but did you have any contact with them, and how did it show up in the beginning of the semester? We could start with you, Ms. Sand.
I almost had the same issue with the mute button. I mean, this is a really weird time in teaching because I mean, majority of my students, they learn from home, so we don't have that same connection. And I've definitely noticed that a lot of them feel way more stressed and they're identifying more with their heritage and they're making more art about it. I've seen so many artworks with the symbol of the fist, and so much influence from Black Lives Matter. Most of my students are Haitian, and it really resonated and hit home to them. So they make a lot of art about George Floyd. And sometimes it's unrelated, but I'm pretty lenient with my activities. So we may be learning about landscapes, but they could do a landscape of a strike, right? And a cityscape. So I try to alter to what they want to do because, like I said, it's a really weird time in teaching and it's such a stressful time. And I have students where my class is their only real outlet and where they're even having these conversations.
What has been your experience, Professor or Teacher Clark?
So with my
'Cause
experience,
I heard that your students love you.
thank you. So with my experience, being same thing, having the students not really knowing them or having them turn in work because they're online, they're at home. But once we talk about this discussion, it's like I'm seeing more participation. So more kids are turning in work, more kids want to explain or want to get their voice out about what's going on and really express themselves through the art. So really having them just draw different things. Like even sometimes in my class, I'll have bell ringers. I'll give them a topic and then they go ahead and start drawing. And drawing topics about this is definitely them able to go ahead and express themselves. So seeing more of that in my class is definitely beneficial, especially during this time. Just having the students really have an outlet, which is art class.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of the program, but I want to challenge everybody to just sit for a moment as people are sharing and think. Everybody's watching on Facebook. This is being recorded. What would you tell everybody right now that is the most important thing to keep in mind as we progress forward? And we're going to start with Yashira. What should people always keep in mind moving forward?
I mean, everyone should think about a happy ending. I don't know. It's like I know it's difficult for everyone right now and seeing the police brutality and everything, but like my Haitian mom like love to say, toujours bon soleil qui apparaît. I don't know if you can understand. But like it's mean like there's always gonna be a good ending or you know. So we just have to stay positive and think about happy things. I don't know, just do what you can do right now, and I don't know, participate in things. I don't know, just do something and always stay positive. That's
Thank you. And now I am going to surprise Kamasha. Kamasha, what do you want moving forward for people to always keep in mind?
Well, I think at this time, just to the teachers' credit, I just want to give credit to the teachers acknowledging the spaces that they're in, even with the challenges with the pandemic. They're in a very special time where history, as it would have been, you're living history in so many ways. The kids are living history. I don't remember a time that it's been so vivid and vibrant about what's happening and what it's going to be said about. So it's not almost, it doesn't feel as history sometimes feels like it's written. Where we are right now feels like history is alive almost, you know, you're a part of it. And you're also a part of sort of the statement of what the books will say, you know, in the future and how that will look, you know. And what strikes me as very important is how art is sort of that vehicle, I guess, has been to all of you guys. And, you know, so it doesn't have to necessarily be the written word, but it could be a photo, because again, that's documentation of what it looked like. So even if the word looked wrong, the picture can't be wrong, you know? And that's, and with the photography space that you brought forth with In Time of Protest, that's can't be lost in this discussion as well. As we are going through Facebook, the team is sending me information of where everyone in the community is so supportive of your thoughts and your comments and how you feel, and that you have a voice in this, you're part of what's important to be written. So that is also exciting. What's exciting is Yashira, your diversity, which actually speaks of the community. When you broke out in Creole, hello, that's what Miramar is, you know? Miramar's part, you know, Miramar has that diversity. That's the beauty of this community that we have. So as I look around the room, there's so much to be said about each component area that really is up to you to not get lost. You know, when you tell the story, you know, it's his story and her story in here, you know, if you will. So that's what I have right now. That's
Okay.
what's pouring out of me right now.
Okay, we're going to Kevin. We're going to go student, administrator, artist, and we're going to go back and forth. So Kevin, if you have something that you want people to keep in mind moving forward, what would that be?
I would say people should really utilize this time, this like coronavirus, just insanity, to hone their empathy. You know, people got this good opportunity to reflect on themselves, to dig deep on themselves, try to find the stuff that makes them feel sad or isolated or alienated or alone, and flip the script on that. Turn it into empathy and treat everyone else with more respect, with more dignity, with more kindness, because Lord knows everyone needs it. Even probably the person who's been perpetuating the antithesis of kindness. They probably understand, hopefully, I would say ideally, they would understand that now we need to treat more people with kindness, because we can go a long way if we just do that. And I would say that respect as well, of course. photographing the protests for me, my former employer fired me for photographing the protests. He gave me an ultimatum saying, like, you can either keep doing that or you're out. And I'm putting it lightly. There was a lot more vitriol coming from him. Obviously, I decided to stay to what I know to be true and good for the world, ideally. Good for the world, good for the community for sure, good for the country for sure. So digging deep, making sacrifices to facilitate empathy and respect, I feel like that's paramount, and that can go a very, very, very long way. And I really hope that more people foster that within themselves, because that will nurture and grow outwards to a greater egalitarianism.
Well,
That's what I want to see.
Thank you. Deanna, what would you like everybody to remember moving forward?
I would like everyone to stay humble and have just a positive mindset in general, because we only live once, and one way you can do that is through art, and you must express how you feel through art, and you must, like, everyone must hear your voices, whether it's through art or actually through voices or through YouTube or Instagram or other social medias. So I feel like everyone should just keep that positive mindset and just keep moving forward.
All righty, very nice. Thank you. Now we're going to go back to Sam. Sam, if you moving forward, something that you want everybody to keep in mind.
Yeah, so going forward, definitely people to keep using their voices, to not lose the momentum that we've built as a community, and to just remember that your voice matters, your vote matters. Students, when you can vote, register to vote, because your voice does matter, and to just keep going with that.
And your organization has been leading, because I've had the pleasure of working alongside you in registering people and encouraging people to vote in a nonpartisan manner. Just letting them, encouraging people to inform themselves and to make decisions before others make your decisions for you.
Yes, exactly.
That is the whole idea. And we're going to go to Gaella. And I know that going forward, you're going to probably tell people to always question something because you're wonderful with questions. So what would you like to instill in everybody moving forward?
I would like to instill for everybody to moving forward is that to not look somebody through their skin, but look somebody through their personality, through them, through their heads, and see their visions instead of seeing their, skin color, white, black, yellow, whatever. Not that. We want to see personality. We want to see a person in front of us. We want to see an individual, That's what I want to see. That's what I want to be able to know, instead of able to know, oh, she's a black girl. Oh, she's a black, he's a black boy. Oh, he's white. Oh, she's white. No, we are person and we are diverse. And this is the this is the beauty of the world. And we have to I'm sorry. We have to I'm trying to find the word. We have to build this strength. We have to grow this tree. We have to try. This is my end to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai, what would you like everyone moving forward to always keep in mind?
I want everyone to keep in mind that times are changing. Things that were accepted 5, 10, 20 years ago or not accepted 5, 20, 50 years ago, it's changing now. And a lot of regulations are being put in place. People are, coming out more by being who they are and expressing who they are. And given that that's the case, we get to own our individual uglies, because everyone has their own preferences and people who don't like certain things. And it's the preferences that leads to hate, and then it leads to feeling like you have to do something with the hate, so then it leads to violence. And in reality, really what it is we just got to own what it is that you don't want to talk about. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's going to take that to realize that, to accept whatever is coming. And I just want to say to the kids that are here, because I too was once in high school, and
Not too long ago.
not too long ago. I was actually in high school with Kevin. We graduated the same year.
And Max too.
And Max, apparently. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember Max, but we all went to high school together. And when I was your age, I also believe the same thing. I believe we should all be happy and we should all get along, and that, we should be accepting of others. And then shortly after I graduated high school, Trayvon Martin happened, and Corey Jones happened, and the Pulse shooting in Orlando happened, and Parkland shooting happened. A lot has happened that has been attacking others. And then that's why I chose to do what I'm doing now with art and marrying art and activism. So I just wanted to say that to you guys. Then it sounds like, you're very present to what's going on in the world. And when I was your age, I had mentors that were artists like Rolando and others to support me in getting clear on my mission. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, working a job at an office. If you feel like art is your purpose, you can definitely fulfill it through art. And I'm done. I'm complete. Thank you for the opportunity.
I would love for people to remember the title of this presentation, moving forward, not to discount Black history, but to accept that Black history is American history. It is not a separate history in this country. It is not something that needs to be written in a different volume. It belongs in our history books as it happened, not as a writer interpreted it, but as it happened. And Kamasha touched on that. The images, and I am going to challenge the young ladies and the photographers, because you are all still young, from Rechi to Max, to Gaela, to Jai. I'm going to challenge you all. In order to make this exhibition a bit more well-rounded, I would love for you to write down on paper your experience as you felt it. And those documents, I will make sure that they go, next time this exhibition is presented, I will make sure that those writings also appear in the exhibition, because it is history. And those images are historic, but they also need content and context of how it was experienced by people who lived it, not by a person who interprets it 30 years from now. Do I have a deal? Do I have a commitment from all of you? Say yes. Thumbs up if you're committed to writing something. Okay, awesome. I think we're running out of time, and unfortunately we didn't get everybody to answer, but I am going to pass it back to Camacha, and then we will have a closing statement by our dear friend Sam. Camacha, take it over.
Technology. So thank you all again for our panelists, to you, the viewers, for tuning in today. I encourage you to follow, again, the Miramar Cultural Center, the Great Miramar Cultural Center at Miramar Cultural for all our latest in programming, our exhibits and events that we offer. And be sure to visit the Anson Family Art Gallery, where In Time of Process is currently housed, again, till March 14th. And masks are required and social distancing is enforced. But again, you can come and see the space on your own terms. So thank you again for joining us. And I'd love to say have a great evening and stay safe, everyone.
And we're back to Sam for our closing statements.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here and for inviting Freedom Fighters for Justice to this discussion. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of Ginny, who was unable to make it to tonight's event. But it's been such an honor to be invited here tonight on this platform and a part of history. Freedom Fighters for Justice mission is to create a space for underserved communities to feel empowered, educate, and bring awareness. And we fight for equality and justice. During these unprecedented times, we have to be diligent in our protesting. We must continue to the movement forward. If we oppose something, if our government and systems are not working for the people, are not closing the gaps of racial inequities, we must continue to mobilize and fight against these systems. We must continue to use our power and exercise what leaders have fought and died for before us, and that is the right and power of voting. We must continue protesting against police brutality and for our human rights. We have to demand that our voices are heard, mobilize, and join forces to continue to fight against oppression, voter suppression, police brutality, and racism. We live in America, where our ancestors have built this country. We are free, and we must continue to stand up and fight against systems that take us backwards or attempts to take us in bondage, to keep us in bondage. Again, thank you for this space. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
That's it. Good job.
Bryce Graham, would you like to close the meeting for us, and with a poem or a piece of literature that you are so good at presenting?
I don't have any poem, but what comes to my mind is the greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And that is what the great Maya Angelou said. So I encourage everybody to just keep telling their story, keep telling this side of history, and to get engaged, get involved, get educated, and stay plugged in to what is happening in the world today.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank everyone from Alexis Fox, Kamasha, Timothy Smith, Shannon Hand, everybody that has been here in the front and in the back to make this possible. And I'm wishing everybody a very nice evening and enjoy the rest of Black History Month. And please carry the conversation forward.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.